Hi everyone, my name's Jo. Welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to get a bit festive. It's not long to go until Christmas and I've got a really quick little make for you today. We're going to be making a pair of earrings and it's a pair of Christmas tree earrings. So there you can see them. I've used size 11 Delicas and I've got a little 4mm fire polish bead at the top there. It's using a stitch that we've already covered. We've covered brick stitch in a number of tutorials, but this one is a little different. I'm going to use 2-drop brick stitch, so adding 2 beads at a time. And a bit like when you use 2-drop peyote or 3-drop peyote, your items bead up a lot quicker. So will this little Christmas tree. So I'm going to make its twin with you so that I've got a matching pair. And then I'm ready for Christmas. Before we get started, I also have a crib sheet. It's a crib sheet that I'm going to be using, but that I will give you an opportunity to take a screenshot of during the demo. But also, you might want me to email it to you. So this is what it looks like. That's my crib sheet. You might want me to email it to you, and if you do, in the comments or in the description of this tutorial, you will find the link to my Facebook page. If you just private message me with your email address, I will get this scanned and I will pop it across to you in an email. As always, we'll quickly run through what we're going to use. I've got 4 different colours of my size 11 Delicas here. I've got the Duracoat Galvanised Gold, Galvanised Silver, Opaque Jade Green, and Opaque Dark Cranberry. And as always, I will list those colours in the description for you to use as well. You need very few of all of those to make our earring. I've got a little 4mm fire polish to use on the top of my tree. You could just use your red Delicas at the top, that's no problem. I've got shepherd hooks, I've got a size 10 beading needle and some 6-pound fire line here. And I've got my thread zappers ready to end off my threads. As promised, here's my little crib sheet that I've done. So you'll see I've got the colours of the Delicas I used listed at the top there with what they are. And the little symbols in the brackets are the symbols that I've used in my row by row here. So if you'd like to, I'll move my fingers out the way, grab a screenshot, hit pause, get your screenshot. But as I said, if you would like me to email it across to you, please just send me a private message on my Facebook page, Jo Barclay Loggie Handmade Jewellery. The link is in the description, and I will happily email this across to you. So grab your screenshot, and when you get yours emailed to you, you'll see I've also labelled it up at the top with what I've used. So that is my crib sheet so that I know what I'm doing. I'm ready to go. I've got a few of each of my colours out and we're actually going to start. Row 1 is this bottom layer of the tree. Ignore my little red base here. We're starting with the bottom row of the Christmas tree. And row 1, well, actually, first of all, you've got to add in your thread, don't you? I've taken a wingspan of thread, so probably about 1.5 meters of thread. It's going to be way more than I need, but I don't like falling short. And row 1, I'm going to start out by picking up 4 beads to begin with. Now, normally in the 2-drop brick stitch, you will just be picking up 2 at a time. But this first row that we're doing, we're going to do it as ladder stitch. So I'm picking up 2 gold and 2 green. Those are the first 2 colours that I'm picking up in my pattern. So 2 gold and 2 green. And I'm going to move them down towards the end of my thread, but I want to leave about a 30 centimetre tail. And I'll tell you why we're leaving so much, is because once we've beaded our whole tree up to the top and our fire polish, we're going to come back and use that tail to add it in our base. So if I bring this back in here again, just briefly, row 1, you'll see the number in brackets is the number of beads I pick up. So 2 gold followed by 2 green. And then it's going to be 2 green, 2 gold, 2 green, and so on. So I've got my 2 gold and my 2 green, and I'm leaving about a 30 centimeter tail just so that I can come back and add that base. And I'm going to pass my needle back through the 2 gold beads. So just through the 2 golds. And when I pull that through, I should have 2 columns of 2. I've got the 2 golds, and next to it I've got the 2 greens. I want to continue beading to the right, so without picking up any beads, I'm going to pass straight down through the 2 green. Ready to pick up more beads now, and the next is 2 more green. And I'm going to pass the needle. So it's just as you would start ordinary ladder stitch with 2 beads at a time, passing down through the previous 2 greens and then up through the 2 greens that I have just added. So I've now got 3 columns of 2 beads each. So I've got gold, 2 green, 2 green. The next one is 2 gold. And this time I'm passing my needle up through the 2 previous beads because my thread is exiting from the top. And then down through the 2 gold beads that I've just added. Then it's 2 greens. And another 2 greens. This is just that first row of our Christmas tree, and we're starting it by using ladder stitch. And down through the 2 greens you've just added, and then it's time for 2 more golds. I have got 2 more lots of green and 1 more lot of gold to add in this first row. So there goes 1 of the 2 greens. The second of the 2 greens. Now you will be able to follow the picture that you took a screenshot of. So either following the picture graph or the word chart to the right. And I'm now about to add my last little column for this first row, which is 2 golds. You still want to pass down through those 2 as if you were going to continue to the right. So there's my first row of my Christmas tree, but I'm now going to be beading the second row, so I need my thread to be exiting this top gold on the right hand side. And to get there, I'm going to come straight across and pass up through 1 of the greens that's to the left of the gold. And then I'm going to take my thread straight across and I'm going to pass back up through that top gold on the right hand side there. I know these beads are tiny, but by going slowly I'm hoping you can follow. So my thread is now exiting the top of that first row I've done. And I'm ready to start row 2. Now, it would be very boring if you watched me beading the whole lot together, but if I turn this on its side now, I'm wondering if you can see the little thread bridges that go between the beads, because those thread bridges are what we're going to be using. So our next 2 beads are going to sit in between the gold column on the right and the green column to the left of it. That's where our first column of 2 beads will sit in row 2. And the first ones I need to pick up are 2 silvers. So I'm going to pick up 2 silvers. And I'm going to pass the needle under that thread bridge between the gold and the green column. And it's thread bridges that you're going to be using now. And then you need to pass your needle back up through both the silver beads that you have just added. So you want them to be sitting on top of each other, and it is fiddly in the beginning because you don't have a lot to hold on to, but you want to pass back up through both those two silver beads. And you've then got your first column, and you can see how it's going to form this diagonal. Whoops, let me bring this back in. You can see how it's going to form this diagonal slant, getting narrower and narrower as you get to the tip. So now my thread is exiting the top of the two silvers. I'm going to be using that next thread bridge that's between the two columns of green. So I've done two silvers, I now need two greens. I'm picking up two. And I'm going to pass just under that thread bridge between the two rows of green. Pull your thread through, and then you've got to pass back up through the two you've just added, from the bottom one to the top one. And there you've got your second column. Now I'm going to continue, and the very last thread bridge I use will be between the second to last, this green column. Let me pop my needle through it so you can see, and the gold column on the very end. That is the last thread bridge I will be using in row 2 before I start row 3. So I'm going to continue with my pattern. I've done two silvers, two greens. I've got to do two silvers, two greens, two silvers, two greens, two silvers, two greens, and finish with two silvers, and I'll come back to you. I've just added in my last two silvers on the end there. So we've done row 1 and row 2, and we're now at this level here, row 3 on our little Christmas tree. And we know that each time we're picking up two beads, so that it makes a bit more sense, I'm going to leave out the 2, and I'm going to tell you the order that you're picking your beads up in for row 3. You're going to go green, green, gold, green, green, gold, and finish with two greens on the other side. So I'm going to flip over because I prefer to bead in that direction when I'm doing break stitch, and I'm going to start with green. And remember, you're picking up two at a time. Two greens, and now you're using the thread bridge that is formed between the silver column and that first green column. So under the thread bridge, get your beads to sit nicely one on top of each other, and then pass back through. This first one is always the fiddly one to do because the beads don't want to sit properly one on top of each other. You'll find as you continue up the row, it all happens a lot easier. So up through your beads, don't get that tail caught. Mine is caught. Just take it out before. It's one of the hazards of keeping a long tail, but we are going to be using that tail, so I want to hold on to it. So there is my first one, and you can really see now how that slant is coming. So we said the order of the pickup for row 3 was green, green, gold, green, green, gold, and finishing with two greens. I've just completed row 3, so if we look at it from right to left, I've got green, green, gold, green, green, gold, green, green. And we're now ready to start row 4 of our little Christmas tree, which is there where my needle is. And the order that we're going to pick the beads up in for row 4 are silver, green, green, silver, green, green, silver. So hopefully you managed to get a screenshot. If not, there is a copy of it on my Facebook page, and you can always message me, remember. So row 4, silver, green, green, silver, green, green, silver. So I'm going to start by picking up two of my silvers, and I'm now using the thread bridge that is between those first two columns of greens. I come under the thread bridge with my two silvers. And so I continue adding my row 4. Row 4 is finished, and because I'm beading from right to left, We started with silver, green, green, silver, green, green, and we ended with silver. And we're ready to go on to row 5. So I'd say we're more than halfway up our Christmas tree now. And row 5 is going to be green, green, gold, gold, green, green. We're now ready to start row 6, which is going to be silver, green, 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 silver. So I've picked up my 2 silvers and I'm passing under the thread bridge. And I'm going to pass back up through the 2 silvers. Silver, then 3 lots of green. Here's my first one, picking up 2 at a time. Green, passing back up through both greens. Not wanting to play ball today. Another green. And you're just moving along to the next thread bridge that you can see in the row. And your little columns of 2 will stack up like bricks in your beadwork. This is the last lot of green. So I've got 2 silvers, then I'm going to confuse you now by saying 2. I've got silver, green, 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 and I'm going to finish with a silver column on the end of row 6. Ready to start row 7. We're really getting up towards the top now. And row 7 is going to be green, gold, gold, green. So I'm going to start with 2 greens, then 2 columns of gold, and finish with a green, and I'll come back to you when I'm done. Row 7 is complete, and I've just got the tip of the tree to do now, rows 8 and 9, and adding in the fire polish. So row 8 is going to be just 3 columns, green, 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 and row 9 on top of that is 2 columns, green, green. So I'm going to add in those rows 8 and 9, and then I'll come back to add in the fire polish. 8 and 9 are finished, and rows 8 and 9 are finished. That's these last 2 rows of green to form the tip of the tree. And we're now ready to add in the bit of sparkle and our shepherd's hook, which we're going to do all in one go. So I'm picking up my 4mm fire polish. You might be using 2 of your red Delicas, and I'm going to attach it. There are 3 little silver Delicas above this fire polish. So I'm going to start by picking up 2, and I'm going to go through the loop of my shepherd's hook, and I'm going to pass back down through that little silver Delica that is closest to the shepherd's hook. If I can get my needle through, there we go. I'm going to put my finger there to hold everything in place, but I will move them out of the way in a sec. And now I just need 1 more of those silver Delicas before I pass back through the fire polish bead. So I've picked up 1 silver Delica, that makes my 3 on top of my fire polish, and I exited the column on the right when the right hand side of my greens before I added the fire polish. I'm now going to come back down through the fire polish and down through the column of green on the left hand side, and that will just help keep my fire polish bead central to my earring design. So I'm going to pop that down, and you can see how those 3 little silver Delicas have formed a little triangle on top of my fire polish. Now all I need to do is end off my thread, and I'm going to do that by passing down through the beads, going through 2 at a time because that's how we added them. Just get my thread untangled here. It's gone through the little connecting part of my loop. There we go. And you're just going to continue to pass through the beads. So I'm passing down 2 golds now. And you can change direction and pass up through some of the beads as well. So I'm coming down through 2 greens. And now I'm going to change direction and I'm going to go up through the 2 greens alongside where I've just passed down. This is just a way of ending off your thread without physically tying knots. The thread is tying itself up in knots in a little maze as you pass up and down through the beads. So I'm now coming down again, and you just want to do this a few times to make sure that the thread is totally secure and there's no chance of it coming undone and undoing all that hard work that you've just done in making your earring. I am making this look a lot more difficult than it actually is because my thread keeps getting caught. So now all you need to do is end off this thread with your scissors or your thread zapper and thread your needle onto your tail thread, and I'm going to show you how to add in the base. I've got my needle on my tail thread and we're going to add in this little red base here, and you can see how the 2 columns of red sit directly underneath those 2 columns of green. So we need to get there first, and we're going to do that just as we were finishing off our thread. We were passing up and down through 2 beads at a time. I'm going to pass up and down through 2 beads at a time along that bottom row until I'm exiting the greens in the center. So I need to come up through the gold and then down through the 2 greens, and I'm at the greens in the center now, and I'm ready to add my red base. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to pick up all 4 beads at the same time. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to be like a little ladder at the bottom. And you want to come back up through the first 2 beads, the first 2 red beads that you've added in that little section. Pull your thread through. And if you land up with a little gap like that, just use your nails or your fingers to move that base right up to the bottom row of your tree so it sits snugly. And you can see now how it's sitting directly underneath those 2 columns of green. I'm going to pass my needle back up through the column of red on the right and up through the first 2 greens on the right there as well, just to secure that base to the bottom row. There you go. And now I'm going to do the same thing. The way I ended off my thread from the top, I'm going to end off my thread from the base. So I'm going to just pass through some beads. I'm going to come back down through those 2 golds, up through the greens alongside, and just basically creating that little maze. I'm going to come up through the 2 silvers. I know I'm turning my work around all the time, but it's just so that I can get my needle through. I need a bit of extra strength from my fingers. It's a good tip actually to use your flat nose pliers if you're struggling to get the needle through the beads, because these beads have got teeny tiny little holes and they are filling up with thread. I'm going to come back down through the 2 green alongside. And I'm going to come down through 2 green on the bottom, and then I can snip off my thread. But if I'm coming down through the bottom, I can get the thread out of the way for you. So there you have your little festive Christmas tree earrings, ready to wear for the big day or sooner. And really simple, doing the 2-drop brick stitch. Now, if you have any questions at all, pop them in the comments, and I do get round to them all and answer them. And again, just a quick reminder that if you would like me to email you my crib sheet that I'd made for these earrings, please just send me a private message with your email address, so nobody else has to see it, a private message with your email address to my Facebook page, which is in the description, and I will make sure that gets to you really quickly. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with something new. Bye.